Let's take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should all participate in this Lamrim teaching, teaching on the stage of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a page or two from this Lamrim text to give you the blessing of oral transmission first, followed by explanation.
Tamje dangye nyanga da do nyanga de wa zhou dang jie dang xiao jie lo xue dang dang me dang xue na dang xiao jie
Page 116.
Long zhu na long zhu nan ba me da dong jiu jing ning jie jing wa rang ge ngong jiu nang xian ba xie ba da ge jing xiao a xin jie ba de xin jiu ri bie zhi ye dong康健的连接吧，见面就是亲那康下的连接吧，就是每周对莫大都生活的亲那也不得的那们，西边这的把这亲的我这不马心亲的马心，西边亲的你让东西，没有那么干没干的。让心大家用是我们当地的没办就是马心多人那么没大没就是这边西边的大约别的群众，现在本把学了为刚进边，那英国没办法，日本就是 강시 용서 동 개배 나 지우시 바바데 다 소라가 용서 수미 민제베 그냥 신배다도 무슨 소번 중동에 무용소 지면 중바파베 람미무제 강시 신바데는 람지쇼 델레베 신주바베 람에 순송시다 게서 최신 강시 장아 담면제베 심지라네 가다도 두베벤데베 자시베르베 통지 사바다번 뭐예지 바탕나 심제레라 템베소노모 티니 토바라 토베 소델라도 조데 림보제 증월레베 되게지베 소노 강한테 케레디는 소지조 제조르 관계제마 제제제데메 카모소 쇼미 걔는 좀 되면 되죠. 소모된지 장안에 라와노모 심제 강안에 세메라와 견도 되는 대로 시에서 시에요 또 영어 동안 쓰는 배워라 버주셔버다 버선나 배워 당은 동스면 마제베 메제와다 제와냐 바다시베 코등 여신 남아가 요 미순 현지 시대는 라마메샤데 버진데 발레스네 존네 랑게 페 농베 스네 존네 바강기 편교라고 용서 동스메 표면적의 용신 스미의 용신 싱그 용신 싱그스 용신 심소 주로베 려왔다 저주세는 비가 모두 요사와 강시가 동스메 이면이 보러 줘봤다 용다 저주는 라와 데베시 너무 데데베 노아는 바르지 제시 저주심베 롱음바 민现在这些别现在用是有些老说吧，现在有些老说把我你目前这边，那现在呢？我听到了，现在有些老外上班了，就是弄。我特别老把当些当的上就这把当大家问题就说老把他们去把钱把些对吧？大个我路龙就给我当些别新鲜了，当的。太阳嘛龙就了下把些呢，大个基本的浪不起，你们都没往那么学你追些。刚来我来吧，那我啥老吧的这些别绿了，谁可不懂呢？那样就是做的那边了，我这心别些我等着我娘的。什年我啥把这下的地界里，对吧？那就真些些地区上给我他们这上下的。用这些把那把谁别去的什么了，都别他们的都做跟那个绿灯的，天灯去叫我那个帮些呢，去了我了那个啥小啊，冷不吃一大了这把面些什么的，当然不用那忙的上那边车把全部当用书是没你们上边那个你们。几把全部解决那东西，老俺个叫我提前这个什么的，人家让我等，叫我就是那么大把了说，三边太阳呢，都是结不着，我接着那种就来绿灯，天气嘛龙就灯，就是我给我他们在讲，甚至公园节通着些人帮没把当我找些送不到绿龙角，给这什么没有的钱。甚至大家了300多万我，他给他寻思点了一下，感觉金巴东亚给那顶头上，他金巴东亚可是啥的，东头亚运动可是啥的，那金巴东亚培养的，马当你们地上，现在地，那可开到年可是多，这3年呢，东升就被这样呀，什么结果是写我地个都要种的这多的。
Geshe read from the bottom of page 116 to the top of page 119, volume number 2 in the English translation of Lamrim Chenmo. So what we talked about last time, if you may, is that one of the ways by which we can get interested in practicing generosity or dan paramita is to understand and contemplate the benefits of generosity and the disadvantages, the demerits of not cultivating generosity. And through such contemplations, we will be able to make ourselves get interested in cultivating generosity.
어디서 다 주주 대가르테도 탐제당 영에다 달로 영에데 봐 탐제동 샤데 신전나 땅 쇼시드잖아 다 데려 가서 근데 소소 비게 다 라바 유디서 그때 마시코는 가지 소소 비 약보시는 땅 아니나 이 영에데 주 타바토야 주도리 셰다 다 선지고 뭐다 타바다 인도 타바도 비 타바 점인지 말아 양 니메네 타바 영에데 어때요 즉 돈도에서 달로 영에데 봐 줘서 셰다 짐바데 동고레 가르스는 양해는데 뭐 통도 쉬워서 때문에 이 동고로 와서 가르치는데 마땅한 가르치는 탄제 동안 샤도를 심지어 땅 쇼스 다 시도되는 거다다 배 룽주도 가제스 이는 고샤는 뭐 땅야리 뭐 이제 꼭 힘들어서요 말아 그래서 딜레가서 소 라바인 땅샤기나 어디야 주시부터 그랬지 단 마땅한 대야는 시디대샤 이든 주시야 말아 어디서 어디까지
At the bottom of page 116, we have a passage quoted from engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds by Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva. And what that passage tells us is, as Geshe explained, that while we are breathing and alive and we have our resources, whatever we have, if we make the right decision and dedicate whatever we have for the well-being of others, that becomes a cause for us to achieve nirvana. In this particular case, the nirvana could refer to enlightenment, non-abiding nirvana, the technical term, right? So that's a wise thing to do. But if we don't make such a decision when we can and we have the resources, but at the end of the life, whether we like it or not, we have to give up everything. There is no choice. Nobody can bring anything once you die. And when that happens, then even though we have to leave everything behind, right, we are not going to get any result out of it. There's no choice. Take it if you can, right? You cannot take it, so there's nothing. So before we face that kind of a dilemma, so to speak, end-of-life situation, it's better for us to, let go and, practice generosity and share what we have with others or dedicate everything we have for the well-being of others, and that will create a cause for us to be enlightened.
This that is that is the person to value just the long bow. Lungju member karsa paju deva lungju number meta 통결증 인제심으로 응원하는 시바다기 다기 침샤 현지벌 현진지부터기 또번저 거시텔레텔 거시텔레 지바제민줄 침나 가야 텔레 지바줄 그다 지지 디스워다 건지 이 류룽주 가래는 비게 그 땡도 딱땡 인거지는 요마를 그 매워 레도 그랬어 다 인제심은 그 응원주는 다 비게 심진 비게 팬도다 인제심은 비게 짐바땅 바이 다 이 캠노 소도 냐데버니 가리야 그러잖아 캠도 샤나 이 야 송야다 인들 강에 먹고 최고 딜 지바견 포모 영상 되어 이 현在봐 지상나 이 지바데 뭘 포도 딜게 얘네 동해산에 요 말이야 딜게 지금 다니죠
Then we have a couple of stanzas quoted from Compendium of the Perfections, Shijin Duba in Tibetan. And so in the first two stanzas, what is explained there is that we should understand the transient nature of our body, resources, and everything we have. Because there's a limit to them, right? They're not going to stay forever because they are in the nature of impermanence. And so if we learn to share our resources with others for the well-being of others, especially out of compassionate motivation, then it is going to be like meaningful investment, so to speak, right? In that way. Otherwise, if we hoard our things, like instead of sharing with others, we kind of keep them, at home, so to speak, then it creates a lot of works for us, right? And now we have to think about how to protect it, right? So we have to, we kind of have this sense of insecurity or fear that maybe somebody might, get at it, take it away from me. And so all this anxiety and fear and extra works come up. Whereas if we learn to give and make meaning out of it while we can, out of positive motivation such as compassion, so then we derive meaning out of our resources.
Ini til song ni tito da ya kalli ma ba jaguri shina ini ti kalli jaya da jiba ti yungu ma res majin jide she paru de ini kharsa chimbe jide paru dewa jimba tang be na ti jinde de jide paru da jimbe de min gara wa majin ini se di ni la ya dunge chen ko kharsa ko so sung gu dunge ji she ini nya de da dunge ko na ma she yo ma ta shi da du ko pen to yo ma wa she da divji ma ba cha wa she da 당시에는 애들 그게 샌들로 동해미야 봐. 제가 심을 리우den도서야 해 봐. 어디에 연구를 다 디가르 인디베 노르타시므로 히다시야 말이지. 미 노디 간데 랑시 따라 용수마다 되다 매번 줄스 야되는 거 메다서 간다서야 되는 거 지켜 볼 간다서 까마축 집아 샤르면 어디다 드나신 그게 딱 되는 거 말이지. 그 남자 매워 그래도 하지레시. 제가 디레서네 매워 그래도 제가 매워 말이고 코는 그게 인고 요 수수 락발 인고 내야 예버 카드를 받당시는 야가 마다는 거 매워래 되잖아. 근데 당야 매버 리브 매버 등은 코나 사수고 등은 코나 모두 하고 말해서 왔다.
So continuing with quotes from the Compendium of the Perfections, according to Geshe's explanation, and if we do not dedicate what we have for the well-being of others, which is a way of saying if we don't practice generosity, then it creates a lot of what we call emotional stress, anxiety, and extra works. That first, as we all know, it is not easy to create wealth or resources. That requires a lot of energy, time, investment, everything. But once we have them, then it also requires a lot of security issues, like how to protect it, how to make it more, not go less, kind of thing. So all of those issues we have to confront and deal with. And then at the end of our life, whatever we have, it almost becomes meaningless. Anyway, you can't take anything with you, and you have to leave it behind. Now there is nothing good come out of it because you didn't choose to give it away. So you just have no option. You just have to live it. So it's all like a kind of a loser's plan, so to speak. But on the other hand, if we cultivate the generous heart and learn to dedicate and give it to others, share with others, then that becomes a cause for us to find resources in our next life. So we are able to, have some kind of good return from our resources, which is basically useless at the end of the life. But by making use of it, we are able to gain resources in our next life. So to be able to do all of these things, we have to really understand the transitory nature of things, impermanent, right? And the example given in that source is that our resources are as ephemeral as the lightning that strikes. Like it's like the shooting star, right? It's just there and it's gone, right? So if you watch that, it's not going to stay for long. It just appears and disappears. So like that, our wealth is very ephemeral, very transient in nature, and at the end of the life, like it or not, we have to give it up.
어디 마시는 메타 맹기디 심베다 예베 때데 심제병을 시에 강 침베 너는 인보 매번 예번 주로 강이 용수 동 개뱅아 어디 더 노르데 네 비 지바마나 제 세자는 거 하나 락 말서 간지 시디 거 샤는 하러 제가 매브레도 그래서 지부 가면 매 제바이는 이 비게 그래 때는지 깨와시마 비게 룽주 때는지 샤려스 그래서 뭐 심지에 비게 심지에 보면 강아지 심지에 돈 뒤에 강가 때는 너는 인보면 예반 교수다 지당당을 놀롱주 살지 놀롱주 강가 코베 메타반 징이 메테바 인보 요 말에디现在 비게 디데시는 냠수를 레토나 인보면 비 놀롱주 룰롱주 강가를 보게 지부 요바 소야요 그래서 시디 소야요서 이 케바도 좀 아샤서 좀 아시겠어요 그래
And we're continuing with quote from Compendium of Perfections, which tells us that in the one sense, as it is described in the Buddhist literatures, there is really no substance or essence to the resources and material things, especially, and including this body. However much we cherish it, at the end of the life, it will collapse. It is of no use. But that being said, if we can make meaningful use of our body resources and everything while we are alive, and we can make decisions, so that is like making essence out of essencelessness, right? Things which are basically no substance, no essence, but then somehow we become smart, and we use it meaningfully, so we are able to make some meaning and essence out of essenceless, useless kind of a thing. The useless in the sense that our life has a limit, and at the end of the life, when we look from that perspective, end of the life perspective, then we see the useless nature of resources, because what do you do now? It just fails us.
就是他说了个用是说明天看也没。前边的不是说吧，就当然你们用是人们就是准备旁边人民你们给康熙前把他人们说是这么的，就西巴是在这张西巴是呢，西巴是就是要叫了，对了，就是西巴是的干的是这个，刚才他的不清楚的是这边呢。 자 멜자 락발 때 랜도 인지 가이 미신 거죠 어디 그저라 랑도 하고 그 시바시고라 뭐 뒷배라는 것도 소도 지고 시바시고라 그래서 시바도 이게 룽주도 가는 소야를 가고요 그래서 그 요소 민데 가야 다손 소야를 가보시는 베두르스 깔리 히부 짠데 베 요즘 소화서는 이 시르도 거 레도 그러면서 그거 하다야 지요 그 노트 민데 산 샤도야 요 말이지 민데 가야 메르와 심베다도 분서 봐. 이게 될바 진짜이나 엔디 디지털 될 게봐. 룽주 소송 동에서 매봐. 겨와시말라 리뷰여 봐. 어다 니가 용거로 와. 어디세. 또 니무 용수 지면 있다. 지바다 그 노룽주도 받아 땅에 될 샤바지야 말아 와. 다 나된 엔디 그게 잘라도 루로 라도 같은 데 심지어 뭐 소송 싶으셔 거로 와. 어시 엔디데 니무 뭐 제그랬어. 어디 에네 갈 파벨 남메스 테프 냠스랑자 마레시 바 판자리 냠스랑자 마레시 거와 거기 심바데 남이 쇼스 시단다 지바탄 어디 람세 테레 거스 라렌타와 어디 스웨사
In the last two stanzas on page 117 from the Compendium of the Perfections tell us that the wise ones, have always praised those, who know how to think for themselves and decide to dedicate what they have for the well-being of others while they're alive and can make decisions so that they make essence and meaning out of that and they have no regret at the end of their life. And that kind of practice is very much honored and, praised by the wise ones, whereas the childish sentient beings, the child is a metaphor for us ordinary sentient beings. What the child is, at a very young age, really doesn't know much of things, and then whatever you give a little thing to a baby or child is going to put into the mouth, right? It doesn't matter. You give a poison, put it in the mouth. Put food, put it in the mouth. Everything in the mouth or grab it, right? So no distinction between harmful, helpful, good, bad, anything. So in many ways, we ordinary sentient beings are very childish in that way that we are so much attached to resources that are not lasting anyway, and then we work too hard, right, to earn and invest and make the resources. And then, we have so many afflictive emotions arising in our mind as we're going through that, right? First, we are so worried that we are not making enough of that. And then we started making enough. Like now, I'm like, oh my gosh, the fear of losing it, or, fear of like decrease in the wealth, and all this fear, anxiety, more attachment. So these afflictions are really not the practice of the transcendental beings, Aryas, right? They don't agree with that, And what they tell us is we should learn to let go. For lack of a better word in English, detachment, machaba in Tibetan, right? And that is what the transcendental beings really care about and they talk about. And if we learn to cultivate the detachment or the non-attachment, I don't know what better words we have, or let go, this clinginess and craving and all of that to the resources. So that kind of practice, which goes with generosity, is constitute the best kind of a path. When we cultivate generosity, that is cultivating a path, right, within a mind or a continuum.
텔리힌 파베 람니 송시 해서 예자왕 최종 강시장 최종의 탐지 심진을 내가다 타도 펜데 야세 루베 돈도 삼바타바니 뭐지 짐바땅나 심지를 때문에 소놈 디니 토베 소데라도 도데 린제청알리 되게 제베 소놈 강 개대된 숙진교를 관계 심마 디니게 제대 감수 형문줄 되니 좀더 되게송 땡지기하는 데라 난 심지 칸에 세메를 페누되는 데라고 해서서 제가 되서다 가르사 이제 예외자 있는 충무시이나 에도 심지 탐지도 땅에나 에도 변 다보를 가지고는 에도 심지 장에 뭐 표현이 표현도 그러와 어디서 디프게 표현도 자체에도 심지 장면에서 표현게 에는 비게 가르사 내가 쓰지 요르스는 세송교 말이지 그래서 리제트만 렌데 로도 괜찮아 가르서 로도게 됐어도 되게 집에 손을 개대되는 숙주는 다 집바다야데 숙수도 요마르고 담에도 저소지 차고 이래 봐 옛날 속도 시에나 아니 관계론선 야저라와 관계론 나인 지대 가면 요나 아니 관계론 나인 지대 가면 디나 쇼고 말세거라 그래서 답답하다서 거라 걔는 좀된 데기서 땡지게는 데라 낭세 땡지도 가려서는 그 당사도 심지 탐지를 당다 며칠 집바다는 평용지도라 탐지를 당한테 도구로와 제가 땡지 리바 양다 그게 정매부터 리바 뒤 누구도 세거라 어디서 보자 아사 심지 가서 땡지게는 데라는 심지는 세메 평용 편도 되는 된다고 해서 어디서 거다
So towards the end of page 117, in a kind of a summary form, what is stated there, followed by passage quoted from Aryadeva's Precious Garland or Ratna Avali, Rinchen Tengwa in Tibetan, is that if, even if we create what is, perceived as an insignificant or small virtue or positive action, in relation to sentient beings, that insignificant virtue actually becomes a tremendous virtue because of the number of sentient beings, isn't it? When we dedicate even a little thing for the sentient beings are what we call limitless in number or numberless, and to that extent, the virtue becomes, very, powerful. So therefore, it's very beneficial. And so Nagarjuna's work, Precious Garland, is quoted to substantiate that point. So what Nagarjuna stated in Precious Garland is this: if such a merit we accumulate in relation to sentient beings, we are to have a visible form, right? Merit doesn't have a form that you can look at it. Even this entire universe is going to be small to contain that merit or the virtue, And there's a reason for that. So the logic is presented in the next stanza, which is the Bhagavan, the Buddha said, enlightened one said, that if you do one good thing for one sentient being, that's one, right? If you do for two, that's two, right? If three is three, but sentient beings are limitless. So if you do anything like big, small, 2 and 4 sentient beings who are limitless in number, your virtue also become inestimable. It becomes limitless in nature. So that is a tremendously powerful way to do our practice.
다 제가 제가 동안 배워서 봐도 제가 세나 배워 당 아니 동스 마제바 메제바다 제바 냠버 제베 제 코드 요제는 응어유 미숭신 현지신은 라마 메샤 디레 다시고 다 지바마다 냐 다 단다디 배용듯이 다 지바마다 신 센다신 냐데베나 에네 비게 동스 배야 동승 야제주야 당조 야제주야 파디주리스 센나 야페루다 마단 센나 페루와 아니 동승 마제바 메게시 사바지야 메마테 지 동야 샤기르 주나 어디에 동승 되게 냠주고레스 어디 가서 아니 제가 데려서다 아니 코르다 요제남 아니 나리 무슨시세로 야 소소를 예베데 코르다 다베데 보다 충마던 세야 돼. 니네 기타는 가서 레톤버지 못 말해. 더 사톤볼레 비게자라와. 제가 너리 비게 가서 미중이 에네 소소를 너리 뭐 땅사다 미비게 다 소소 잘라 망보들에 땡게 준다. 에네 소송들이 말랑시다. 최신 촉신效果레스. 어디效果레스. 어디 쓰겠어.现当当那样这个人家这样几乎都效果了，就是说。
근데 그게 양주스 능에 야구스 코스게.
라.
가리 초시자 오르스게.
초시자다 요제라 스고.
알로.
룰룽주 요제 가래나. 소도 뭐 커다 이 룽주 가세나 뒤에 카드거도 봤다 그랬어요.
알로.
다 카드거다 내가 기타 떼용이나. 떼용이나 이때 야뭐 저도 렌죠 말해서.
알레라 소렌요. 알았어. 알로 소소연 침배 그 랭에 있는 소로 봐. 땅에서 나서.
소소 땅 가지 땅에 땡게 싶은 거 줘라. 뭐서 그러. So
we are on top of page 118, and what is stated there is, in the preceding one, we talked about the benefit of giving, isn't it? Anything we do, small or big, in relation to limited sentient beings, the virtue also becomes immeasurable and limitless, right? That's the benefit of giving. Now, what is stated in the next one on page top of 118 is, if we don't practice generosity, don't learn to give, right? We learn to hold on to stuff, which is called stinginess or miserliness, senna in Tibetan, right? So the miserliness is the antithesis of generosity or this kind, open, generous heart. So if we hoard things, it only promotes miserliness and diminishes generosity. In the first place, it might prevent us from cultivating the mind to give. At all. Or let's say even if we have cultivated some mind to give, right? But then now somehow we learn to hoard and learn to be very stingy and clingy and all that. And then whatever generous mind we have cultivated, it might diminish and it might decline within our mind. So in that way, it becomes very detrimental for us. So then the thing I just asked for clarification is sometimes what happens is when we become very generous, we are very giving and we share things with others. In return, we also receive a lot of things from others, isn't it? Right? Others might start to give us tons of things too. So what is being stated here is we should also learn to be contented with whatever we have, right? Just because others are giving you a lot of things, just don't feel like I have to get everything, because you don't need, because you are the one who's giving, right, to others. So why you need to take and take and take too much? So I said, be contented. So the sense of contentment is also important in that kind of situation.
파진 디발에게 세네교의 강기 표현교랑 용수 돈세 표와 민교의 용신이 계속이 르와타 정신심의 말로 용수 빵 강식 돈세 년보를 줄바다 양다 정주 람나 집세나 텐데 텐데 노름 렌제 제지장 정신심의 롱 오버미스 디다 파진 디발 세네교도 가린 주거에서는 세나다 에너지 몸에 동시에 그게 폐 계획으로 가려서 용신해야 돼 용신 집어서야 돼 것도 들어 가지 세신시 샤긴시 무서다 가지 너 샤긴시 무시야 될 때는 에네 가르서가 될 신달 메도와다 에네 가르서 세나 폐야다 강가 티 샤긴시 못될 때는 용어레스 디시보다 용진다 계속 지어와小学生배 멀리 뻥 용수방 시제다 다들 그 샤긴데 이小学生배 그 짜는 말이 용수방고 편도 말해서 그러와 그걸 가르쳐서 강의 동수 년벌 교와다 양자 小学람 대신에 진짜 너는 이제 예시죠 小学生배 너무 오버미스 디렉 다 소속 비춰줘야 계속 중요하게 인데 노르롱제 기시도 칸데라나니 정신스럽게 랑죠 말해서 다디 쳐줘야 팅이도 랑셔라 다 쳐줘야 계속도 어디 랑죠 말해서
So on page 118 we have two stanzas quoted from the compendium of the perfections and so what is stated in those stanzas as Krishna explained is this that bodhisattvas understand that attachment and clinging to the resources is what prevents them from sharing whatever they have with others. And attachment also, in some sense, gives rise to miserliness and stinginess. Okay? And so for bodhisattvas, attachment is seen as an obstacle on their way to enlightenment, and so they advise and to let go attachment to things, and so because of that, if anything becomes an obstacle on their way to enlightenment, then so bodhisattvas advise not to take part in that, right? Not to get attached to things. For example, say, somebody is going to give you, I don't know, the whole kingdom or something to the bodhisattva, like you take my kingdom or something. But if then that is perceived as an obstacle on their way to enlightenment, because life is going to be really hectic now, you've got a kingdom, then bodhisattvas should say, right, it's not said exactly the way I'm going to put it. Thank you very much, I don't want it, right? But it should let go that. Or whatever is giving, like wealth, resources, jewels, whatever, if these are becoming more of an obstacle on the way to enlightenment, then bodhisattvas do not favor them, let go. But on the other hand, whatever they get, if it's useful, they could use for the benefit of others, resources, then they welcome those things, right? So it depends upon your state of mind, so to speak. If you're getting attached to things, it becomes an obstacle on the way to enlightenment, thumbs down, let go. If you don't get attached to it, but you could use the resources to benefit others, thumbs up, right, go with it. So that's the kind of thing, here.
어디다 용진해야 돼, 착신해야 돼. 뭐 착신해야 돼. 다 노하나라 어디 셔. 세신부터 착신이 유명했다고 그러면 저 농주 시보여나 착신면은 냐쇼고 배 자와 개노이나 배 유봉보시 냐쇼고다. 세신면은 먼저 다 나무 송주도 먼저 다 보여지나 유저 내가 계산자서 아니 장부 연대 중에 내가 인식을 내가 그것하다 세선님 네 신을 세계에서 말해. 근데 카드로 되는 답이 포장 제는데 상관 비셔야 돼. 수제에 아니 남사다 배 코리안라들 그 강대 와라. 이 현바면은 셔다 이 장부 연대 중에 내가 샤도고. 다 현바면은 이니 또지 탭잡에서 둘러져 잡이면은 그 장부 연대 딜 정말 와.
So the crux of the matter here is, not to get attached to everything you have, body resources, right? If you don't have attachment, you can own the whole universe. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no problem. according to the Vinaya, monastic rules and regulations, right? Monastic good book. Even the monks, if they have no attachment to things, monks can be, rich like billionaire or tri-billionaire or whatever billionaire they can. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing contradictory being a rich monk and, but if you have no attachment. But if you have attachment, then it's a problem. So that's why some of the examples our gurus will give, where somebody could have almost everything, but yet is so detached and not attached to anything. It's just that 7th Dalai Lama, Kesang Gyaltsen, right? He lived in the Potala Palace. And he has a lot of people who serve him and own the whole country practically. But he is given this example who is completely detached from, right, unattached to any of those things. So he is practicing what is a 12 set of virtues, But on the other hand, one might not have much, a very simple-footed thing. If you're too much attached to the even simple thing, there's a problem, right? You don't have much, but now you are attached to that. So attachment to resources is the issue here, not like how much you have or you own or not. That's not the issue.
도바 탐지 땅니 상주 저바당 다지 뒤지수 저 탐지바 첨버 셰데 다게 생가 룰룽주 예자 탐지 심진의 땅니 다야 룽주를 샤바 셰는 다게 쥐바네 랑보치 니메 동안나 추르쇼니 추셰지 감을 레반 살 데데셰바 비 류라 세쿠바 통네 라양 추르주데세 술주 테네 나시 셰바도 냠도 삼네 세 삼네 세 마자바샤티 세데르다 디다 데세고 당보 비게다 샤우주 심게 인 가가 도바타 심게 또 타제사 인 간섬 디디데 베 샤바젠 또 토고메도나 인 디 비게 사모탄 다디 녀버르 그네 인 상지 좀데 네게 비게 도바타지 땅 샤우주 조레스 다 나타다 인베 당부 샤우주 심바신 시제터도 조 사이터야 케란사 다 마시는 저 좀 샤샤베이노 비게 또 톱즈메도 좀 시디 세듬시데이나 근데 데레스 워다 런제 투게버자 런제 달런이 니메들이 추는 야 지치면 저들로 야 저버리 파지 고치 자차 사주요 말아 어 디데시는 사주요 말아 시자야 좋다보다 년부터인데 가지 샤연이야지 카도 좋다바지는 사주요 그래서 런제 투게가 내신 꽃잔 사려요 말아 어디서
So the middle paragraph on page 118, what is stated there is this. Let's say we have generated the mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta, right? Which means we are going to dedicate our life to achieve enlightenment for the well-being of all others. Yeah? And so in the middle, a part of that is, dedicating whatever we have for others. But in the middle, let's say we get attached to things, right? That's a fact. Yeah. But then we need to remind ourselves, so to speak. You know what? Well, here I find myself getting attached to things. I am a follower of Shakyamuni Buddha, my guru, my teacher, right? My savior. And Buddha gave up everything for the benefit of sentient beings, and that's why he became the enlightened one, right? I'm not yet enlightened. I'm following his footsteps, and so I generated a mind of enlightenment to benefit others, and now I'm getting stuck here, getting attached to things. So I should not, break my promise, and so I should learn, to give, to let go attachment to things, and advance on my path to enlightenment. So this is how we need to remind ourselves, so to speak, If we don't do that, if we break our promise and then kind of, fall back, then it will take a tremendous long time to advance to the enlightened stage, right? Because we are not taking step forward, we are taking step backward and then backward, and that's not the way to do, because we want advancement. We don't want, rolling down the hill, kind of falling down. And if we follow that way, like say we kind of default on our promise and we just go back, then our behavior is just like described by the crazy elephant's behavior, right? we call crazy because what the elephant is doing. The elephant gets scorched by the sun, right, and just kind of freaking out and try to find a body of water and plunge into it. Well, that cools him down. But then he gets out and roll on the mud, right? Now he gets dirty. Then he go back into the water. Then he roll back on. He's just doing this endless activity. This is not helping him to solve his issue or the problem. So if we kind of, instead of learning to advance on our path towards, like we started to break our promise and go backward, so to speak, then we are that crazy elephant, Yeah.
Tini les da parjin devale tonam jiju chodin karza tobanam ji tebanam ji jojo tenje jing teshu rangi tamje samjadi yunzi chaba number sewe cher semlo tobi tamban de da boss te tada mai ro tonda roza dire ba tebanam ji ni be jojo tenda soso be shiden de shoni in yezi jeba laya di jimbada to be cheden de shudu na in namo sanje to be jimbat tarchen ya sanje du tinde peyong samlo dan in soso di da ju lamge sheni o tinde sheni in be senat ba ka ta shegures yunzi chaba number 7 cher semlo to be tamba de da go so to ju sheni ya go shi zu so ju shu ba ta shi de she o de se o ja do go da gu lu tang de te don che ye da ge 방시에는 출응을 다기 차샤와 랑부 트시 달에 리바미스 어디래 가서 어제다 드레산이 비게 동주 좀 쉬고레스 근데 녀리아 설주심이 로하고 다가 루이도 당시 라자 다다 치운 거 같은데 샤그이나 에드베 루이즈다 파지수더라와 제가 사주요 말이스 요다 랑부 트시 지버지고라
So we have two stanzas quoted from Compendium of the Perfections at the bottom of page 118, which basically substantiate the explanation just given. And so we find it stated there that once we find ourselves in that kind of a situation, where even though we have promised to work for sentient beings, and now here we are getting attached to our body and resources, then we really have to remind ourselves about our promise, and we have to think about the Buddha. And the Buddha is a great example to follow. So we think about the benefits of generosity and how Buddha did it, and how he became Buddha through that. And so we aspire for the same outcome or the result, and we should think about the benefits of that and follow Buddha's example. And that thinking will help us to overcome our stinginess or miserliness and help us to correct our own wrong thinking or getting attached to resources. We have to really tell ourselves mentally, right? Now here's kind of a, how should I say? Once we dedicate ourselves for sentient beings, we said, I'm going to dedicate my body, resources, and roots of virtue to others, isn't it? Now here, we are not even able to dedicate our resources for the others. Forget about the body part, right? It's a big promise, and we are not even doing the part of it, the small one, right? So that becomes unbecoming on our part. So we need to inspire ourselves. Say, you know what? We made our promise. Nobody really forced us to do the promise. And so we have a great example before us, Buddha, who did it. And, where is he now? Or he or she. The Buddha is Buddha, enlightened being. And so I want to be like a Buddha, right? So we should, boost our spirit and learn to let go of attachment to our resources. Otherwise, we will be that elephant. Yes.
be ngoto ta teri chubo se de jibo shul ge jarwa o de tele ya ka bo shin jibo ta ta ma ta ka me de tang ga kuni to tang go do su ge ka bo shung so na in jibo to ya de ko ra ngam ge yung go le la wa ta o de te ba de jang go se o ta ga ji ma ta ne ni mi ji ta ne tele ge ba ye te je ne ga bo shi o ti de ke to na ina jibo to to re se we sare.
So at the bottom of page 118, we find it stated that we have to think in all possible ways the benefits of generosity and how generosity is a good thing, to follow. And through such contemplation, we are able to generate a sense of joy in giving, isn't it? If we enjoy giving, I'm thinking about that. So if we cultivate that sense of joy to give, then that will drive us to be able to, practice generosity. So I mean, anything we like to do, right, that just comes up naturally, makes us to do it. So when we don't have that enough sense of joy cultivated, so maybe that's why we're getting stuck, practice of generosity. So we have to generate that intense delight, sense of joy related with giving.
我弟兄的强巴的应届讲话当，要是一那么他不拉萨巴是三百太阳，东升街吧乔乌山，这里的本来弟兄弟家强，深圳里边强巴的应届公园知道不？还有上街里呀，永定当台巴的讲呀知道不？我听这个酒了，一直别个他看到这些呢。 근데 지마동에 되게 평온도 삼고 그랬어. 답변은 저 심지에 그게 닝제다 샴바트께서는 심지에 동시하고 걸어와. 제 심지에 편도시고 지마동고 걸어와. 다 상지 그 용대산은 상지발에 소마서 상지야요. 대파진로 나거와. 그래서 지마 조시 나거와. 어디시네 어디래 줄라라 이 지마트 태양고래라고.
So we should also, in our thinking, so to speak, connect the dots, because we strive for enlightenment, and for that goal to be realized, we cultivate love for sentient beings, right? We wish everybody to be happy, and we cultivate compassion for sentient beings. We wish everybody to be free of suffering, isn't it? And see, if we cultivate those wishes, which are very important state of mind, right, which bring us close to enlightenment, now here we have an opportunity to practice generosity. So we should think that, okay, I mean, if you really want sentient beings to be happy and free of suffering, right, one of the ways that really help them, help to fulfill those aspirations is generosity, right? Through giving, we are benefiting others, dedicating what we have for others. Then also sometimes we think about our enlightenment, what we are seeking. Yeah? And so in order to become enlightened being, we need to accumulate a lot of merit and wisdom, isn't it? And generosity is one of the ways to accumulate merit that is necessary for enlightenment. So this is how we should connect the dots, how generosity or dan paramita is essentially related to enlightenment that we are seeking, is related to love and compassion that we cherish and are important, for sentient beings.
this word that the any jimbe payong da senna sin shakhin si nimi ke samne any tige tada be any jibato be ta gabo ngan tire yuma da senna sin pig call ya dunge kya tin jibato je sunje sungso na en this what jibato da tong lu do lungju kata kar tisero lu dang tige lungju da tusun ke wa tamje ja simje gu gi tong je pangba ba tang wa cha he sung ba de lu lungju Geshe mi shene simje tamje la se ene sambe ton o se de da ngo de jin ta da ngo samba jangya me ngo jinga ja yo ma ba o se de ta ton ya de ka so so lu she lung ju she geshe sum ton ya ngo bo de de ro o de da be so ton se be ngo ne phang ba me be sem gi jani o di sho go res o de su da.
So on top of page 119, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva, in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, tells us, how to engage in the practice of generosity. So basically, what's stated there is, at this stage, we don't have much to give anyway, right? So our primary focus should be training our mind, right, to give. We should cultivate the wish to give, and that's very, very important. So mentally, we can train to give whatever we have. We have three things, like body, resources, and roots of virtue, right? These are all the things we have, we can dedicate for others. So at this point, we should engage in that mind training so that we will open our heart and the mind, right, to be able to give. So that's very important, right? At this point, we don't have much to give. And as Geshe said before, my first footnote today, a reminder that we are really not qualified to give bodies anyway at this stage, right? So don't do crazy things, close my footnote. So at this point, it is like authentically and genuinely we should train our mind to give, right? As our ability to give increases, then we are able to do it.
동아 샤워서 저도 도바타랑 가서 랑긴 집이 시바도네 신나도 시바 양당 양두세 양다 양두 거서 양다 양두 중알라 상주 시바 해샤디스 어디에 가지고 동야면 다 됐어 다 간제 다다 너저다 레탕고 저 진짜 장님 다다도 요 말이 거라 비게 무바신 땅땅 다 지기디 다다 백수 삼로 가세 땅나 심진란 편야 비게 오늘서 라글랜드 블레야 지야 요 말와 어자 어다 진짜 가이 민두선에 애니 치디시 요 말에 시고다 그 외바도 가르스는 뺀다 뺀도 디지 말에 뺀 미직다 충리 부가도야 뺀 까갈럽데던 라고 다 현사 말이 샤샤 인거 컨설트 디잖니 토론라던데 신토기 있을라나 그 포세야 요 말아 어찌 나긴 당벌 갈래가 장안이니 까갈라 인터널로 로거와 어디 나이 장안이니 저로 류롱서 동안 디레도 그래서 왔다.
At beginner's level, what is more important is to cultivate the mind to give or train our mind as best as we can. Okay? This is like preparing, right, for situations where when we have resources and abilities, right, we're able to give. At that point, we don't get stuck because now our mind is stuck, right? At that time, our mind is ready to give, and we're able to do that. So we really need to train from the very foundation level. Okay? That's very important. And otherwise, and sometimes we might even feel like, what do I have to give? What difference is it going to make? I have nothing. I'm just Zippo, all right? What difference this Zippo will make in the whole entire universe? So we might belittle ourselves and put ourselves down too much, right? We shouldn't do that either. We should train our mind to give. And so when situations arises, our abilities improve, right? And then at that time, we don't get stuck not to give, right? We'll be ready to give. But the training has to start from now. Otherwise, it's like somebody saying, like, somebody at a very young age, like, doesn't even, let's say, start a language, ABCD or something, right? Doesn't want to do that at all. And then at a certain stage in their life, like, okay, I want to be the professor of the college or something. Like, now forget it. Like, you haven't learned ABCD, or you have to start from the basic anyway, right? So, so it's important for us to see that, perspective and don't belittle ourselves like, oh, I don't have nothing to give, and what does it matter? I'm just like this speck of things in the universe kind of thing. It's important for us to, train our mind. When our mind is trained, and when situations arises in the future, we can definitely put the mind to practice.
어제 퍼지도 다 공부해. 디다 단지 단지 체증어인데 내가 다가 가지 달면 된다 민중 넘도 양도 양 조베 상지연의 제정 강례여 장주 선바시 상지 삼지매접 제쇼 송세 어디 다 가지 임바당도 장라 양 배 히부 때교노도 시시 뭐야지 뒤에서 가지 매지 비게 코랑 대사 유 코랑 이번나 이제 비게 가지 매지 어때 그랬어 다가야 히부 때배 뭐도 도와줘 어때 코랑 렘 다 코랑 잘라 코랑 렘 나기 근데 소소 때에 가지 자다 매야시 그랬어 어제 내가 다 가지 자다면 진짜 민중 남도 다 내가 겁니 조베 상지 연지 제도 어디 장네 이 상지 비게 나무다 상지라가 나시 신도 어디 비게 마사도 손이 신이 텐도 지바당도 에네 틴데가 라렌다 등게 될라 됐으고 샤주스마 세계에 있어요. 상지 삼이체바 제쇼 송스 상지 삼지메게 제쇼 송스데 텐지로 다 피지 상지에게 에네데 지부쇼 삼지메자 배 셔다 야고 생각만 제게서야 있다. 샤주스마 드레지는 상지가 바제그라.
So on page 119, we have a passage quoted from Compendium of the Perfections, and the explanation given on that is, So even as we find ourselves in a situation where we could give something, right? Practice generosity in action, not just only thinking, right? Now let's say in action. We should always look at the mind and see that there is no kind of a delusional thought attached to it, like a sense of pride or arrogance or something, a sense of superiority, that ethnocentric attitude, look at you, poor you, I'm giving you something, that kind of attitude. Or like sense of favor, like, hey, remember, I'm kind of nice to you, always giving you something. That kind of giving is really not there yet. The giving should be unconditional, as we talked about before. And the way Bodhisattvas practice is, there is no sense of favoring someone. There is no sense of like, I'm superior and you're inferior and here I go, giving you this. It is like, Bodhisattva's attitude is, I'm giving you the things that already belong to you, isn't it? You're just taking the things that's already yours, right? So there's no sense of like me giving you something. So that is very important. Unconditional giving, no arrogance, no egomaniac attitudes. Just messing up the whole practice of giving here. And so that kind of unconditional giving is very much praised by enlightened beings. Bodhisattvas who do that kind of practice, Buddha said, wow, there.
저 무거 대샤고는 저 가지 시간
So we will stop there and we will welcome one or two questions and then we have to do talk, right? Yeah. Volume number 2, page 19. Anybody? No? Okay. That's okay. Thank you very much. Considering, thank you for your sensitivity and all that. So we will do a short dedication prayer. Sanje jindo me de we wa ye do we nan da jin she wa yo kan re ra we go we jin gam de be nan de wa ma le jong be ne che le se wa den jin jiang zo ye sha be shi de ten yo je ye da man gu ru ra da man de la ni an da ya